Washington controls the time and is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First, let me commend Chairman Ryan for his cooperation on this bill. He has worked in good faith with me and my staff to include requests in this bill every step of the way, and I really appreciate it. I think it's a good model for the rest of how Congress should work, and I'd work with him anytime. And I want to say thank you to his staff and to the staff under Chairwoman DeLauro, Steve Marcase, and I want to thank my staff, Michelle Reinschuttle, for getting us to this point, although I don't believe we're quite there yet, and I'm going to explain why. I'm going to have to rise in opposition to H.R. 4346, the Fiscal Year 2022 Ledge Branch Appropriations Act. And now this bill does include some provisions that I support, including critical needed funding to address the requirements of the Capitol complex. It provides funding that allows members and staff to better serve our constituents by providing better software to improve the accessibility of casework forms that our offices use to help constituents resolve problems and issues with federal agencies. It implements measures to increase staff retention, and it allows offices to acquire new technologies to strengthen the protection and productivity of our IT infrastructure. This bill also supports the critical mission of the Capitol Police by providing funding for additional personnel to replenish their really depleted ranks, new leadership training initiatives, and additional resources so they can continue to protect members, staff, and visitors who come and who occupy the halls of Congress on a daily basis. In the aftermath of an incredibly difficult and challenging year for the men and women of the Capitol Police, these measures are really an important step forward in improving the police force. However, Madam Speaker, while there are many parts of this bill that I do support, this bill, like the others that the majority has put forward, is based on what I believe is a flawed fiscal foundation. The majority is forging ahead with massive increases to non-discretionary or non-defense spending, and the bill we're considering today includes nearly a 13% increase over current levels. And I'm going to explain why that, in context, creates some problems. At a time of record high deficits and debt, we need to, I believe, a more measured fiscal response. In addition, the majority has also included controversial policy riders that our side of the aisle opposes. With the approach that the majority is taking with this bill, and really all of them in the appropriations packages we're considering here today, we're on the path to yet another continuing resolution. If we're to break this cycle, our majority counterparts need to be more willing to work with the minority on all the bills to create a more bipartisan support that garners more of a bipartisan thumbs up. Furthermore, the majority has not put forward any of the reforms, the Capitol Police reforms, to the board that governs the Capitol Police or its leadership structure. And that is a real sticking point, Madam Speaker. While including funding to hire more officers and to get more equipment is a necessary step, I would go to bat for that any day of the week. We will never see lasting improvement to the operation of the force or officer morale without these necessary reforms. We're going to continue to see the erosion of the force until those changes are made. And as we grapple with the trillions in new spending that the majority has passed and is proposing already 6 months into this year, I want to emphasize this point. We must course correct now rather than wait until our nation has passed the point of no return. The Democrat majority got out of the gates by pushing through a $1.9 trillion package that includes bailouts for states like California that were already raking in billions more in state revenue than was previously forecast. My colleagues across the aisle and this administration are insisting on using reconciliation to force through a $4 trillion more on a gigantic wish list. And for perspective, the spending I outlined is above and beyond the normal congressional appropriations. Specifically, it's nearly 4 times what the Democrats are proposing to spend on this and these appropriations bills that we're considering. Last year, when the entire nation was grappling with COVID-related shutdowns, when hospitals were down to their last box of surgical gloves, and Congress had to step in to make sure that our health system and our communities didn't collapse. It was needed, those were needed dollars. But we should not make the mistake that national emergencies, like the COVID pandemic, should greenlight and invite further spending that is going to usher in record inflation, trillions more in debt, and honestly, a reckless increase in spending. I fear that some here are simply not aware of how spiking the prices are of food, of gas, and other everyday items impacting families. Unbridled spending brings on the kind of inflation that increases prices exponentially. And when we talk about saddling the next generation with crushing debt, we're talking about your kids, Madam Speaker, and my kids, and our grandkids, and they're going to have to pay for these decisions. I believe that we can do better. The funding increases in this bill, I think, are going to fuel that fire. I think we need to recalibrate. For all these reasons, I urge my colleagues to join me in opposing this bill at this time, and I reserve the balance of my time.